Obviously, becoming a member is the best way to support the channel, and we thank our four members so much. So, James, who are they?
Absolute legends include BNK, Gokul Garg, Kafir Tamata, and Look Who's Watching. Thank you so much, you guys. You're absolute legends. Let's get into the video. Hello, welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. Happy New Year. And this is a big one. Okay, this is the one that the fans have been waiting for. The Cricket Nerds themselves have been waiting for this particular podcast. It is our preview to the England versus India, or England Tour of India Test Series. Massive. Can BAZBALL work in India? Probably not, but we're here to preview it anyway. Now, it's a slightly different series in that all the test venues are slightly different, I'd say, to the ones you'd usually expect. Like I'd usually expect to see an Ahmedabad, and a Mumbai, a Chennai, things like that. This time, we haven't got that. We've got different ones. We've got Hyderabad. Oh man, I shouldn't have started reading them out because this second one is horrible. Visakhapatnam. Cheers. Rajkot, Ranchi, and the most beautiful test venue of all time, Dharamshala. So that's where we're going. It's going to be a brilliant test series. What are your thoughts on? Should we just go straight into squads? Because
Yep.
India have released their
Okay.
squad now. I reckon we crack on with India's squad. What are your thoughts on the overall squad and potentially any omissions?
I think that India are always going to produce a good, strong squad that's going to challenge. I mean, last time England toured India, um, Axar Patel was kind of a question mark over his selection, and he ended up being ridiculous in taking all those wickets. Pretty much outbowled Jadeja and Ashwin at times. Um, I think that's just the case. You've got a group of players who are all comfortable playing in their own country, are all top class, mixed in with some youth as well. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing for India, because the last time England played India, India had quite a settled squad. You knew their 1 to 9 pretty much very easily. Whereas now they've got a few new young players coming in, like Yashasvi Jaiswal. They picked Dhruv Jurel as a potential wicketkeeper batsman, because there is a bit of a question mark, isn't there, over the wicketkeeper situation. Do you think they're gonna trust Care Rahul to have the gloves on those Indian surfaces in Test match cricket, or do you think they're gonna pick someone like Shrikar Bharat and Dhruv Jurel, potentially a weaker batsman in that slot?
It's a really interesting question because I think India for a long time has been defined by its trust of its main players.
Mm.
It picks the players that it likes and it sticks with them and it trusts them. So KL Rahul for me is the likely choice. But you're absolutely right in that he's not as good a keeper as a lot of other people. Certainly not as good in test matches, like when taking every catch matters infinitely more than white ball cricket. So if it was me, I would probably end up playing KL Rahul, just because he's still a good wicket keeper. It's not like he's never taken up the gloves before, and it's not exactly like he hasn't grown up in India, played many red ball matches in India. I think he's going to be all right, and he's a bit more of a proven commodity. That being said, somebody like Dhruv Jurel, who he's a definite up and comer. He's so young, and he's so exciting. He's exciting in the white ball game. I wasn't even really aware of him in red ball cricket, until he played in the England Lions match against India A, and he scored a 50 at a very quick strike rate, 5 4s and 3 6s, 50 off 38. So
Mm.
he's definitely one to watch. He could be a very good player, in time to come. So it's a very nice position that India find themselves in, where they've got a team they've got a squad where they could play 11 people that have played, tons of test matches, got loads of experience, or when they're 3-0 up in the series, they can start blooding some of the less experienced players that are also really really high potential.
Mm.
Um, I think their top three is pretty nailed on. I don't see it being anything other than Jaiswal and Sharma opening and then Gill in at three, because they've seen Gill as that Kohli replacement for a long time. So I think he's just going to
Yeah.
slowly move down the order until he settles at four when Kohli retires.
Yeah.
What do you think of that top four of Sharma, Jaiswal, Gill, and Kohli?
I mean, it's pretty scary. Jaiswell in Test cricket isn't as experienced as the other three. I mean, Shubman Gill has been around the scene long enough for us to kind of say he's no longer the. I know he's the future to take over Kohli, um, but at the same time, he's been around long enough to for us to recognise him as one of the best batsmen in the world. Um, so having him at three is a great place for him to bat. Rohit Sharma, we know what he's like at the top of the order. On a raging turner, if India win the toss and elect to bat, he can play that Virender Sehwag sort of innings, which scores you that 80, which is all you need to win a low scoring affair. So I think that's really important. And then obviously Virat Kohli at number four, his record speaks for himself. He's just insane, isn't it? Really, like his career has been incredible, and so it is going to be tricky for England to get through that top four. And when they do, you're left with some solid players to come, especially with Shreyas Iyer, who seems to be getting stronger and stronger, Kerr Rahul, and then the three all-rounders in Ashwin Jadeja and Axar Patel. That it's just they bat really deep, and it's going to be hard for England to dismiss that Indian squad if their spinners can't come to the party in the same way that India spinners will, because we know what they're going to bring.
Yeah, and I think it's no secret that at least some of the pitches, if not all of them, are going to have quite a lot of turn.
Mm.
In India produce spinning pitches. They're more entertaining than the completely flat decks that they used to produce years and years ago, where it was you'd get more draws than results. So I've got no massive problem with them. It would be nice to have some test matches go to day four, but the way that England
At
play,
least.
yeah, but the way that England play, there's no guarantee that they'll go past day two anyway,
Mm.
because they're all about smash the ball and play very positive, and we'll see how it goes. I'm really really fascinated.
Mm.
Um, India's spin department, if they are producing a lot of turning tracks, is unbelievably good. It's like they've got some of the strongest spinners that have ever played the game. Ravi Ashwin is on an all-time list for me. And then Ravi Jadeja is a genuine all-rounder now. So is Axar Patel. So they lengthen their batting lineup while adding in some of the great spinners of
Mm.
our time. And then that leaves, them the opportunity to play somebody like Jasprit Bumrah and Mohammad Siraj as their pace attack, which I don't really think you're going to need that many more than two paces in a test match in India anyway, especially when you got that quality. And if it is a real Bunsen, they could just play Bumrah and have Kuldeep Yadav as well. I'd be really
Yeah,
like, do
that's
you
what I
think
was
they'll
thinking.
play four spinners at some point? I think it'd be an alpha move if they did.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if it's day one of the test series, they toss up and Rohit Sharma's like, yeah, we've only picked one seamer and four spinners. Then, and you're looking at England who have picked three seamers and one spinner.
And it's
I
Joe
think
Root
that's,
is the spinner.
yeah, I think that's gonna, yeah. In a way, you look at India's pace attack. I know they've missed out on Mohammad Shami for the first couple tests with injury, but Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Siraj, Mukesh Kumar, and Avesh Khan, they're all going to do a good job. So India could be bluffing by picking so many spinners and leaving out Mohammad Shami. You never know. I doubt it. I expect they're going to pick a load of spinners and roll them. Whether they only pick the one seamer, hmm, that's that would be a statement, wouldn't it? But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they do because if they do only pick one seamer in Jasprit Bumrah, then that means Virat Kohli's number 2 choice seamer in that team. And
Yeah.
everyone wants to
Oh,
see that, don't
that's
they?
what we want to see. Bowling off the wrong foot.
Yeah.
I want to see Kohli bowling to Harry Brook and then Harry Brook bowling to Kohli. Both just
Yeah.
medium pace, bowl off the wrong foot. That would be peak test match. Um,
Yeah.
another notable omission is Ishan Kishan, who was very
Yes.
much kind of in the contention for having the gloves, and he's been so he took a break in South Africa. I think he opted out of that, and it looks like as a result he's just not been picked. So I don't know if he's done his test career a bit of damage by making that move. But KL Rahul and then KS Bharat, who has played quite a few test matches for India, and then Dhruv Jurel, who would obviously be making his debut, are
Yeah.
the three keepers. What are your thoughts on Ishan Kishan? Like, if he was in that squad, would you be tempted by him, or would he be like the fourth pick wicket keeper for you?
For me, he's the exciting number 6 option. Shreyas Iyer at 5, Ishan Kishan at 6 as your keeper batsman. I see Kishan's keeping on a similar level to KL Rahul. I think, like I said, they're not the best keepers, but as you said, they've grown up as wicket keepers in India. They're used to it, and I think he'd do fine. So I would personally play Ishan Kishan in that number 6 slot to provide a bit of impetus. That might be why they picked someone like Dhruv Jurel, because he is the player who's going to strike a bit quicker than Shikhar Bharat. But whether India need that or not, I don't know. If it is turning that much, then you need your best keeper, which for me is KS Barrett, who is seasoned in Test cricket. So, yeah, it's an exciting squad. It's a very different squad to what England have seen in the past in a lot of ways. We still don't know their final 11 for India, even though they're probably the better of the two squads. So it'll be interesting to see. Should we move on to England? Because England have also got a few questions in the wicket keeping department, because a lot of the time with BAZBALL, we question the decision and then the decision either pays off. We're like, oh yeah, that was a really smart decision, or the decision goes horribly wrong and we're like, that was awful. Whereas for once, they've made a decision that everyone's like, that was the sensible choice. It's not the most aggressive decision, but we like it. And that's picking Ben Folkes in the squad. Is Ben Folkes the number 1 choice for you? Does he have to play every test in this series?
Yes. Yeah, it's a no-brainer for me. I think no matter what happens, you've got to take your chances. And having a keeper of the quality of Ben Folkes in comparison to somebody like Johnny Bairstow, who certainly has been out of practice in wicket keeping in red ball cricket over the last few years. And he also, after his injury, things like that, and he's never been as good a keeper as Ben Folkes is. It makes so much more sense. He's basically like having another bowler. He's part of that bowling attack because he makes chances out of nowhere. He has the ability to stand up to the seamers, adding another mode of dismissal, adding a bit more pressure to the bowler, to the batsman. He's got the ability to, make stupid catches down the leg side and big stumpings, things like that. We've seen like the highlight reels from Ben Folkes in Test cricket and county cricket are really, really impressive. So for me, he has to start, which then strikes up some really interesting questions on how England balance themselves.
Mm.
And this hinges on a couple of things. So one idea is that Ben Stokes, we have to assume that he is bowling as well. And that definitely balances the side more. In which case, the top 3 is like it was way back when, which is Duckett, Crawley, and Pope. Joe Root at 4. And then either Harry Brook and Johnny Bairstow at 5, Ben Stokes at 6 as the all-rounder that balances everything, and then Ben Folkes 7. And then you've got a bowling attack that looks something like Rahan Ahmed, Mark Wood, James Anderson, and Jack Leach. Something like that. Or if Stokes can't bowl, then what I would do is have Stokes in at 3. And I would then be tempted to play Harry Brook and Johnny Bairstow at sort of 5 and 6, and then Ben Folkes at 7. So that would be my decision. But it does make things more complicated because who do you pick if Stokes is fit? So Stokes is in at 6. Who do you pick? Do you pick somebody in at 3 out of Brook, Pope, and Bairstow? And then who do you play at 5? So that's my question to you.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one because I would argue that someone like Ollie Pope will probably bat at 3. Um, I mean, he's played in India before. He didn't do very well, but he played in India before, so he's kind of got that knowledge. So for me, Ollie Pope fits in at number 3, and then Harry Brook kind of has to play at number 5. Um, for some reason, I kind of am losing faith with Johnny Bairstow. He's the one to miss out with Ben Folkes coming into the team. Um, because Ollie Pope for me is I just see him as a more solid option than Johnny Bairstow. Harry Brook has to pay for me at 5, so if Johnny Bairstow came in, he'd bat at number 3. But I want Ollie Pope at number 3, so that's kind of my logic around it. And then Joe Root 4 and the 2 openers, as you said. So that's kind of how it fits around for me. With this England batting lineup, though, it's all dependent on is anyone going to have a big series. So last time England toured India, Joe Root was the standout player. He was the top run scorer. It might have been over both teams. I think he was the top run scorer in the series or something ridiculous like that. Whereas the next top scorer for England was Ben Stokes, who only scored about 200 runs. And England need a couple of standout batsmen. I think they are going to be challenged. Someone like Harry Brook, never played in India before. Zach Crawley, he might have played maybe one test. I can't remember if he went to that series. I can't remember. Ben Duckett, he didn't play in that series. So maybe one of those can have a good series and help England out. I'm not sure. But they are going to be challenged. And it will go one of two ways. Either England will go all out attack, as they have, and it will pay off, and they'll have some really good innings, but then they'll also have some poor innings, and India will probably get on top of most of those poor innings. Or England will attack and they'll get dismissed cheaply every single time, and they'll go home and everyone will say England can't play against spin, which has been the case forever, whether England are playing defensively or attacking. They've always been judged as not playing good against spin. So I don't think the method of playing aggressive is going to change too much, really.
I would hope that it doesn't, because that's the big experiment that people are interested to see. You know, we've seen England try to play normally again, or how they would naturally play against spin for years, and they've been terrible most times. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and we'll go on to the bowling in a minute. But I just want to. I'm really interested by the fact that you said Harry Brook has to play, because I think I would actually pick Bairstow at 5 over Harry Brook. You know, Harry Brook is completely unproven against spin. We saw he was good against slow bowling in Pakistan on those completely dead pitches, but that was more, he was able to pick length, but there was no real lateral movement there. So it'd be really interesting to see how he does, because I think Pope and Brook are both relatively inexperienced against proper spin like that. Crawley is also, to be completely honest, but he's going to be facing the openers at least, so he might be able to get a few fast runs before he goes out. But I think Bairstow's got a lot more experience against spin. I've seen him do well against spin, so that's why he'd be my first choice.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I think Harry Brook. Well, for starters, I've just seen Zach Crawley did play in India. He played 2 matches last time, scored 150 and didn't score any runs across his other innings, really. But for me, Harry Brook has to play because he is the most talented. Aside from Joe Root, he's the most talented batsman in that side. We've seen how good he can be. He's got such a high ceiling, and the experience of playing every game. I don't think he's going to do incredibly well, especially in the first few games of this series. I think that's where he's going to be tested the most. But these sorts of tours are what teach you a lot. Is going down under to Australia, that teaches you a lot. Playing in India against world-class spinners, that teaches you a lot. And for someone like Harry Brook, you could think play Johnny Bairstow, he might score us a few more runs. But for Harry Brook and his career, I just think he needs to play. Um,
You know what? I think you've won me over there. That was a very compelling argument. I can't
yeah.
I can't even come back on that.
Mhm.
Let's move on to bowling.
Yeah.
Um, Now we talked about how amazing the spinners are and how proven all that sort of stuff for India.
Yeah.
Um, we have picked Tom Hartley and Shoaib Bashir, who, if you've never heard of them, you're completely forgiven because they're not household names when it comes to spin. We've also picked Rahan Ahmed and Jack Leach. That is our spin department, and Ollie Robinson in some sunglasses if we're absolutely desperate. Um, so Tom Hartley is a tall left arm spinner. He's played a few ODIs, I think, for England. The thinking is that he's sort of the poor man's Axar Patel. He's England's answer to Axar Patel because he's tall, he's got a high release point, and he kind of fizzes it in. Might do well on Indian pitches. And then Shoaib Bashir is probably a similar kind of thing, but just a right arm off break version. I think he did really well in a sort of a training camp in the UAE when they played against Afghanistan there. So those are the two unknowns, and then obviously we've got Jack Leach and Rahan Ahmed. I think Ahmed has to play for the same
Mm.
reason that you gave for Harry Brook needing to play. He's the most kind of exciting young bowler that England have produced for a while. Um, Jack Leach, now that Rishabh Pant isn't playing, do you think he'll have a better tour? Because last time he got absolutely taken to the cleaners by Pant, didn't he?
Yeah, I think also he's under different leadership, which is going to help him. Jack Leach has been a completely different bowler since Stokes and McCullum have been in charge. The way I see England's bowling attack is you're right, Stokes, if he bowls, then that will allow England to just pick one of the seamer because you only need two. Um, I mean, if
I think
depending
we'll
on the
end up picking
pitch,
three if Stokes can bowl. To be honest,
yeah,
I don't see us picking fewer than two,
yeah.
like out and out
Well,
seams.
because the way I see it is you've got Jack Leach provide the control, Rahan Ahmed provides the leg spin. He's the attacking option. He's the big wicket taker. Um, so then it comes to Tom Hartley or Shoaib Bashir as the point of difference. In a way, you've kind of got to look at your spinning attack as you would a seam attack in England. You've got someone a little bit different as that point of difference. And Tom Hartley with that tall action, I think he's what, 6'4", something ridiculous.
Hmm.
That is a massive difference. And I can see England going that way with the current mindset. So it'll be interesting to see how England work around their bowlers, whether they do go in with the just the two seamers in Stokes and someone else, whether it's a Mark Wood, Ollie Robinson, whatever. Um, but I think England come to India in a more solid position than they did last time. Um, just because we didn't have as much faith in Moeen Ali at the time. Jack Leach was a lot more unproven. He's had 3 years more experience. So
And
that's
he's
always
been
going to
really
help, isn't
good
it?
in those 3 years as well. Like, obviously, he hasn't played
Yeah.
that much red ball cricket since because he had that stress fracture. But he's been so much better. And I think the more confident that he's grown, I think you need to have a lot of confidence when you're bowling spin. And when you look at India, prime example of some incredible spin bowlers, Ashwin and Jadeja, certainly
Mm.
those two. They're cocky, aren't they? Like
Yeah.
they look at a batsman, they're like, yeah, you're not going to last against me. And 9 times out of 10, that belief gets them over the line. Like they're right. The batsmen aren't going to last against them because spinners all think they're really clever, and a lot of the time they are, and they just outfox the batter. So I'm excited to see how Leach does in India.
What are your thoughts on Gus Atkinson as the pick? Because obviously we've gone with express pace and bounce in Mark Wood. Do you see Gus Atkinson almost being a replacement in that role? if Mark Wood can't play all the tests.
I mean, I think it's inevitable that Mark Wood can't play all the tests. And that I think we need that express pace. I think that's what we learned in the Ashes was that Mark Wood was so vital, and Gus Atkinson is a similar point of difference. He's been really good in the county championship for Surrey, and I'd I'd be interested to see how he does. I think yes, he's a definite replacement. Like Mark Wood is the first choice. Mark Wood's my favourite cricketer. I've said it a few times. He embodies everything that I think is right about cricket because he gives it a go. He tries so hard, and then when it comes to batting, he's fun, like hilariously good at batting. And I don't think he has any like ego when it comes to batting. I think he thinks he's way worse than he is, and yet he quite consistently scores like 30s and 40s these days just because he swings for the hills. So Mark Wood's the first choice for me, and in my opinion, he needs to play. So in for the first test, if I'm picking my England 11, it's Duckett, Crawley, Pope, Root, Brook, Stokes, Folkes, Ahmed, Wood, Leach, Anderson. That's who I'm picking. I think
Not bad.
Jimmy as well. What are your
Mm.
opinions on like the seamers? You know, who would you pick? Because you're obviously a two seamer max kind of mindset at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Stokes is. I can see it happening where England only pick two seamers in the first test, one of them being Stokes. So they pick three spinners below Folkes, and Stokes gets injured after bowling 2 overs, and then the commentators are just like, "Why would you do that?" Um, I can just see that happening, but because it's just the classic thing for England to not pick that many spinners in their team. Um, but if you need the spin and you can rely on the spin and you can open the bowling with spin, or you need to open the bowling with spin, why pick more seamers? Um, I don't see the point really. I don't see. I think that's an old-fashioned England way of looking at things is to pick more seamers, um, because they're the best bowlers. Whereas you think about India, even if Mohammad Shami was fit, they're not going to pick Bumrah, Shami, and Siraj all to play in the same Test match, are they? Because that just completely rids them of their spin options, which they need. So yeah, I can see England picking two seamers. I agree with you in terms of the first Test match. You got to pick your best, and England's best new ball bowler is James Anderson, and England's best fast bowler is Mark Wood. That's just the way it is. So you've got to pick those. So yeah, I agree with that first 11. I think England could go with that, but I can also see them picking three spinners, and having to go with one of those new faces in Hartley or Bashir. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how England's counterparts do against the Indian ones. Um, I think England will rely very heavily on Joe Root and Ben Stokes in the batting in terms of their experience, but it's time for someone else to stand up and make a name for themselves in this series. So, in terms of players to watch out for, who would you say for England is that player?
I'm gonna say, oh, that's a real tricky one actually because I've got two in mind.
Okay, that's
I
fine. You
think,
can have two.
all right, I'm gonna say my two then. Ben Duckett is one because
Mm,
he's never toured in India. He's been really good at the top of the order, and he's quite good against spin, but we haven't really seen him tested against some of the crazy spin that we're going to see in India against the really high quality spinners. So
mm.
he's someone I'm really interested to see. And I think he could be one to watch. He could be really good. The other one is Rahan Ahmed. He's an absolute superstar already. Like he's so exciting that I think he could end up taking some absolute worldies. I don't see him being miserly. He's going to go for a few runs, but he's going to be one of the most exciting players in this tour, and I can see it going well for him. How about you?
I agree with Rahan Ahmed as a one of the ones to watch. He is the player who could very easily win England matches. He can change the game. I'm interested to see how he bats because he's not proven himself as a batter yet, and we know he can bat. Maybe batting at 8 will do him some favors. I don't know. Um, but the other one for me is Zach Crawley, um, the other opener. I think he's almost transformed as a batsman in the BAZBALL era. That kind of brand of cricket has really helped him, and he had a standout series in when Australia came in the Ashes, and for him to be in India as it's almost newfound batting great, really, at the top of the order for England. Like he's done so well. I just think, can he fulfill that role as a with the potential he's got? We know he's got the potential. Can he fill that at the top of the order? So my eyes are on him. See how he performs, because if he can provide some very quick starts for England, again, flipping it around to England this time as the batting first on a raging Turner, if he scores 80 off 50 balls in the first session, that could be game. You never
Yeah.
know. Look at the pitches that we played on last time. So
Yeah, if he can do a row hit, then England are in a
yeah,
great position, aren't they?
yeah.
Um,
What about India then? Who are your players to
yeah.
watch for India?
I could pick 11 of their starting 11 that could win a match. That's probably the biggest, like the scariest thing. If he plays Kuldeep Yadav, because I think he's so good as a red ball bowler, and he's just unfortunate in that he's in the same team as Ashwin, Jadeja, and Axar, so he might not get played. But I think he would absolutely tear through England if he did, because he spins it miles both ways. So can you imagine him day 4 on a, I don't know, dry, I'm not going to try and read out the names of the stadiums again, but a dry Hyderabad pitch. He could be ridiculously good. So
Mm.
Kuldeep Yadav for me is a really exciting one, but I think one that's actually going to play is Yashasvi Jaiswal. I think he could end up doing incredible things at the top of the order. We've seen his ability just to it's such a cool head, especially in the white ball, where he just once he starts, he just accumulates runs and he keeps on churning them out.
Mm.
You could get double ton for India, and that could be more than the entire of England score in a test match. So for me, Jaiswal is the big one to watch. How about you?
I think Jaiswal and Gill are two players who it's their time to stand up really, and they kind of need to be thinking about succession plans for Rohit Sharma potentially. Um, and those two are the ones who have the responsibility. And Shubman Gill is a very good player, but he hasn't had that breakthrough series, um, like someone like Virat Kohli had. And maybe this is his time. As an England fan, I don't want that to happen. I want England to get on top of Shubman Gill, get him out early, all those things. But I can just see him hitting a century or double century in the one of the first couple tests, and then that just sets him off for the rest of the series. Um, and also Axar Patel as well. He's the one that the England batsmen are almost fearing after what he did last time, which seems crazy to think that Ashwin and Jadeja are in that team as well.
Yeah.
But can Axar Patel deliver the same way that he did last time?
I
That would
think he'll
be
deliver in a
interesting.
different manner because he was so good with the bat against
Yeah,
Australia that I think that could be the way that he really buries England, because
yeah,
England have got a history of not being able to remove a tail anyway, let
true.
alone against, players that are of Axar Patel's quality. So I think he could do a real number on England.
Yeah,
Um, Make sure you stay tuned, everybody, because we will be covering this series in depth. So it's absolutely worth subscribing. It's worth telling your friends about. It's also worth becoming a member. We've got 4 members at the moment. We've got BMK, Gokul Garg, we've got Kafir Tamatar, and Look Who's Watching.
thank you very
If
much to
you,
those. Yeah,
yeah, thank you so much to those guys. They really do support the channel. If you want to watch some more exclusive content, we're just about to release probably the same time this video comes out will be a members only video talking about some players that are kind of maybe were excluded but should have been played. We're going to talk about that. So there is going to be more exclusive content as well as our normal content. So subscribe, tell your friends about us. Zach, before we wrap this up, prediction for the series. What do you think it's going to be? I'm going to rule out a draw. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
What's your prediction for the series?
I've got an optimistic prediction
Go on.
and a realistic prediction.
Okay, very far apart, are they?
Well, no, they're not actually. My realistic prediction and optimistic prediction of the same result of India winning. I think India are going to win at least 3 matches. Optimistically, I hope England win the other 2. But I can see it being 4-1 India.
I was thinking exactly the same thing. I think 4-1 India, and the one will be just an absolute monstrous innings by England.
Yeah, everything will come together eventually.
Yeah, it'll just be an absolute beauty on like a semi-difficult pitch, but they'll just be teeing off, and India's bowlers might just lose their heads a little bit. That's the only way I can see it happening. But really interested. Let us know in the comments. I'm expecting to see like 100 comments that just say 5-0 India. And if that is the case, absolutely whack it down in the comments, because the more you like, the more you comment, the more it helps us out. So, and it's funny as well just to see a load of 5-0s. So if
we all know it's going to be, it's probably going to be 5-0.
It's probably
we're being optimistic even 4-1, aren't we?
Yeah.
The only way
England 4-1.
Yeah, the only way England can win is if it's 2-2 after 4 Test matches, going into the 5th one, because we know India don't win knockout games.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they need to not.
That's...
If India start treating it like a bilateral, we're done for. But if they treat it like a World Cup semi-final, we're in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the continued support. 2024, year of the nerds. Don't forget to subscribe. Join us for the ride. It's going to be good fun. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We are active, especially on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So give us a follow there. All of the social medias, if you want to listen to the audio versions of these podcasts, anything like that, it's all in the link tree down in the description. Become a member. It's an awesome way to support the channel, and you get a load of exclusive stuff, and you get your name like shouted out at the start of the videos. So that's cool as well. So yeah, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.